Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We kick off this very important, compelling program with Siomara Wedderburn, who's director of UrbanPromise Wellness Center in Camden, New Jersey. Good to see you, Siomara.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be here with you today.
You got it. Tell everyone what UrbanPromise is.
Yes, so UrbanPromise is a nonprofit in the city of Camden. We've been in the city for over 30 years. We started as a small summer camp in a church basement years ago. We've grown exponentially. We are a youth development organization. Really, our commitment, Steve, is to helping young people succeed in life and to cultivate leaders from within the community.
How much has COVID impacted the young people of Camden, often described as one of the most challenged? Some people call it the poorest city. I don't know where they get those statistics, but I know that it's challenged in a lot of ways in Camden. How have the young people of Camden been disproportionately challenged because of COVID, please?
Yeah, well, I think, Steve, that our young people continue to try to figure out what normal looks like right now as the pandemic, as we work to recover from it. Many of our young people have had to take on roles within their families of helping with their younger siblings, caretaking responsibilities as our families, grapple with, work, their working families. And so for many of them during the pandemic, they were not able to stop working. They were not able to work from home. And so we saw a lot of older siblings taking care of younger siblings. A lot of our students experience anxiety and fear. And so the work of our wellness program, Steve, is really just that. It's creating safe spaces for our young people to be able to show up and talk about the issues that are affecting their lives. It's creating that safety for them. It's allowing them to be able to show up authentically, to be able to name, what they're experiencing, to have language to put around those experiences, right? How does a 5, 6, a teenager begin to grapple with what a pandemic is? You asked me how the families are faring. You have many families who were sort of middle income, who were doing well, they were launched into survival mode. The moment that they lost their support systems, some of them lost employment, lost, the savings. They had to utilize their savings to stay home with their children because who was going to be there with them, right? And so you're talking about the difference between what's healthy and manageable and what isn't, right? And for many of our families, you do hear all of the negative things about Camden, but what I want to point out something, Steve, and that is that our families are resilient. And there is so much beauty in every city, and that the challenges that our youth face in Camden are in a lot of ways no different than the challenges faced in the suburbs. However, it is that access to resources that makes a difference, right? It's the disparities that exist, right? It is not having food in the city, right? Not being able to find food sources during the pandemic, not being able to go to work like you did every single day, not having childcare, right?
Do most of us who are more comfortable where we are, particularly in the suburbs, do you think we understand? I know this is a deep philosophical question, but it's also a real raw question. Do you think most of us even begin to understand what you're describing, A, and B, care enough about it?
Yeah, I think it's hard to conceptualize, Steve. I'll use this illustration. We were all in this perfect storm of sorts, right? We all experienced this, and it was a collective traumatic event for all of us. However, how you weathered the storm really had a lot to do with what type of shelter you had. And what you're describing is, I'm very sheltered, right? I have resources at my disposal. Many of our families weathered the storm in rain jackets, weathered the storm with an umbrella, didn't have the type of shelter and supports and resources that, some of us are blessed to have every single day. And so, no, it's not the same. It is hard to conceptualize. I do think that there is, I believe in humanity. I believe in our ability to connect and relate and engage with one another. And one of the reasons why I love the work that we do is because the Wellness Center sits there, right? We are at the intersection of some of the hardest things that people experience. It is about those adverse childhood experiences.
ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And P.S., put up the website for UrbanPromise, as Siomara keeps talking to us. ACEs, make that real for us.
Yeah, it's these adverse childhood experiences that don't discriminate, that many of us experience, but we know that depending on your zip code, you are more likely to experience more of them, right? And these things that we experience also impact our longevity, right? How long we anticipate that we'll live, and they impact our quality of life. And so I'll break it down to the most simple statistic is that, if you live in Haddonfield, New Jersey, your life expectancy is 20 years longer than a child growing up in the city of Camden. And that bothers me,
And how
Steve.
far away is Haddonfield from Camden?
About 4 miles. And that bothers me, Steve. It bothers me.
Your zip code, once again,
Mhm.
and people are like, well, I'm in Haddonfield. That's not my problem. Well, okay. Well, just imagine 4 miles away what we're talking about here. Siomara, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I want to do this very quickly. You're talking about a whole complex set of challenges, but at UrbanPromise, we're talking about teaching mindfulness, yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. Minera so left. How does that help, particularly with young people?
Well, what happens, Steve, is that we're equipping young people with some skills that they need to navigate life. I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up in a family where, I understood what it meant to name my feelings or to work through them, right?
I'm sorry. What did you say? I'm sorry. No.
Exactly.
I totally understand what you're saying. Your feelings, we're not interested in your feelings. We don't talk about our feelings. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And so what we're doing with our young people is we're teaching them these skills, in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth through high school, right? We're giving them the language to name what they're going through, giving them skills so that they can navigate those spaces, right? We're not afraid to have the conversations. We are creating safety for them. So we know that, trauma happens, and there's a saying, Steve, hurt people hurt people. Well, there's another part to that saying, and that is that healing happens in relationship, in healthy relationships. And so we strive to model for our young people what healthy relationships look like, to cultivate relationships for them, to give them spaces where they can show up authentically, right? And they can begin to navigate those spaces. So we had this young man, and I'll call him Jose for the purpose of our story. Jose came to us in second grade, and he had already been kicked out of 3 schools. His internal dialogue was that he was a bad kid, right? They had no control over his anger. And this is what he believed about himself. And after about a year of working with us, I sat in my office on a particularly rough day for Jose. He was sent to my office because he was just having a moment. And I will tell you, I said to Jose, my question to him right away was, hey, what's in your toolkit? It's the language that we use with our kids, right? What's in your toolkit? Because we want them to embrace the tools that work for them. Everything does not work for everybody. You mentioned we offer mindfulness, breathing, all types of techniques. Jose looked at me. He looked at me, and then he closed his eyes, and he began to do a breath practice that I taught him. And right there, me and Jose began breathing together. And it may seem like a really small thing, Steve.
No, it doesn't.
But here's the thing. Jose now understands that he is capable of self-regulating. He does have control over his anger, and he has some tools that he can use in everyday life. And it is a complete transformation in his life. And that's the beauty of what we do, right?
Incredibly important work. Siomara Wedderburn at UrbanPromise Wellness Center in Camden. Siomara, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Investors Bank, the Northward Center, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, New Jersey Institute of Technology, the Fidelco Group, Summit Health, and by NJM Insurance Group. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network. And by Meadowlands Chamber.
Are you looking to be a part of a dynamic, forward-thinking business service organization? At the Meadowlands Chamber, every day we connect, collaborate, and innovate, helping to drive business and economic growth in the greater Meadowlands and New Jersey. I invite you to visit our Meadowlands Chamber headquarters, an open office facility with access to resources for our members' businesses and networking needs. Together, we will build the Chamber of the future and the next generation of leaders.